So sitting on the floor presents quite a lot of problems for people these days because we don't sit on the floor very much. It requires a lot more movement of the hip than sitting in a chair or walking. Any kind of sitting on the floor asks questions of the knees, the hips and the ankles. And it's useful if someone's got stiff hips or stiff knees or pain in the hip or pain in the knee to approach this one leg at a time. Because if my knee hurts a little bit in Virasana, I can move away from it. I can reduce the bend at the knee or the side opening at the knee by lifting that hip. I can then grade the movement by raising and lowering the pelvis like this. So you can ease the knee, you can ease the hip much more easily one leg at a time. I can't really do this if I'm in full Virasana. That's true if I've got a problem in these kind of movements. If I'm stuck with my knee in the air, that's just sitting here hoping things are going to change isn't quite as useful as putting the leg on the floor, lifting this hip, and then lifting and lowering from here. I'm still differentiating the hip here. This is what I'm interested in. Can I feel the movement in the hip joint that feels tight? But I'm not confronting it. I can make it as comfortable as I like, and then I can slowly ease my way out of it. So both these ways of working with the hips can ameliorate pain in knees, pain in hips, and to some extent feet and ankles. And you just spend a little bit of time in each. Just easing yourself. Obviously this is working on this hip joint and this knee. And this version is working on this hip joint and this knee. And these are non-confrontational in a sense. You're not going to get into trouble working with these. Okay, we'll see a few other knees and hips. So it's your right hip, is it, that's a bit sticky? In which position does it?
Mainly that one.
Okay, well let's start off with that one. So if Amber's got a slightly discomforting hip in here, the way I would approach this is ask her to bring the knee to the floor and the left hip in the air. So yeah, that's it. And then you could lift the left hip even more, and then lower it again, and lift it and lower it. And what you're looking for is, negotiating your discomfort with that, easing into it a little bit, coming away from it, easing into it, coming away from it. And if it's not too bad, you might get to the point where you can sit your left sitting bone down and leave your right leg quiet. What you don't want to be doing, and I don't know if you can mimic this for me, Amber, is to turn it into a seesaw where your hip goes down, and yeah, exactly like that. Yeah, that's a non-differentiated movement, and that's not helpful. That's why you need to anchor your right knee and then move your pelvis around that hip joint, around the right hip joint. And then try it in Virasana. So bring the leg into Virasana. And think about the same thing. Now this time, of course, you're lifting the right hip and lowering it. And this is more usually a problem if people have got problems in their knees. So you don't want to confront the knee to head on with this, but you can ask questions of the knee in a more gentle way by lifting and lowering the pelvis. That takes the strain off and puts it on and gives the knee time to adjust and adapt to the movement. Obviously the other thing that we bump into in Virasana is the opening of the ankle. And ankles should be able to open. If I asked you to drop that right hip, you start to get discomfort in the hip, will you? So lifting the right hip up takes you away from discomfort. Yeah, and that's what you're doing really. You're navigating your discomfort. How low can I take the hip without distracting pain, without the discomfort sort of ringing bells in my mind? And you go backwards and forwards. Rhythmic movements are generally quite soothing. And you may find, or you may not, that over time of lifting and lowering and lifting and lowering, I kind of want you to lift a bit more, I think. I want you to come, yeah, right up. And then, yeah, so it's a really serious movement, that's it. So that the joint is actually doing something. The more movement there is in the joint, the more chance it has of easing itself, untangling itself. And then come into the other version. So Alison's knee doesn't go to the floor in the same way Amber's did. So this will be interesting. So now you lift your left hip until your right knee goes to the floor. All the way up with your left hip even more. No, that's a seesaw. That's it. And you keep this down. So you lean on this enough to keep that hip on the floor, and then you lift your left hip more, and then, yeah, like that, exactly like that. Yeah. And you see how far can you drop your hip. And what's happening now is she's having to differentiate in this joint here. As long as this leg stays where it is, the movement's going to have to come in the right acetabulum, in the right hip joint. And it's a very useful way of freeing up a joint, just asking it to come and go and come and go. And then allow the left sitting bone to come all the way to the floor. Good, and the hip, of course, comes up again, but you might work your way through that over time.